A hike turned into a hike to the afterlife. That's the only way to describe what happened in Yellowstone National Park in the autumn of 1986. A man armed with nothing more dangerous than a camera tripod stepped into the wrong patch of meadow and crossed paths with a predator who had lived her whole life by a set of rules older than time. By the end of that day, the man was gone. The bear's life changed, and the question of who really owned Yellowstone, man or beast, had been pulled into the open in the most brutal way possible. His name was William Tesinsky, 38 years old, a mechanic by trade and an amateur photographer by passion. He wasn't the kind of tourist who strolled into Yellowstone with a paper map and a box of donuts in the back seat. He was Montana-born, raised near the type of landscapes that made men feel small and alive all at once. Nature wasn't a novelty to him. It was part of the rhythm of his life. And in October of 1986, he drove into the Hayden Valley, camera gear rattling in the back, looking to capture something timeless. He wanted beauty. What he found was horror. The Hayden Valley itself looks peaceful from a distance, wide, open, with golden grasses rippling in the autumn wind. But anyone who knows Yellowstone knows that the valley isn't just a postcard. It's a hunting ground, a feeding ground, a stage where life and death play out daily. Elk bugle across the meadows, bison graze, and somewhere in that mix, the shadow of a grizzly drifts like a storm cloud. These aren't zoo animals. They don't read warning signs or stay politely on their side of the trail. They move like kings across their kingdom. And most of the time, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But most of the time is not the same as always. That fall was a hard one. Food was scarce, the berry crop had failed, and grizzlies were desperate to pack on pounds before hibernation. A typical Yellowstone bear eats 60% plants, roots, nuts, grasses, and the rest is a mix of rodents, fish, and the occasional elk or bison carcass. But when calories run short, a hungry bear will take risks. And Bear 59, a female grizzly already known to park rangers, was in no mood to forgive anyone crossing her path. She'd been tranquilized and relocated more than once. She'd been separated from her cubs after one darting. She was stressed, habituated, and running on instinct. On that October day, William set up his tripod in the open. The camera was adjusted for a shot roughly 30 to 50 feet away. To rangers who pieced the scene back together, it looked like he had been preparing to photograph something large, something close. The tripod itself told part of the story, mangled, spattered with blood, with coarse, grizzly hair mashed into its joints. Whatever had unfolded, it had happened fast. Some accounts said William had been stalking a bear, edging closer for the perfect shot. Others swore there wasn't a single frame of a bear in his film, suggesting the story was twisted later to pin the blame on him. The truth of his intention died with him. What didn't die were the facts of the attack. Witnesses weren't there, but the evidence paints a picture darker than anything William had ever imagined through a camera lens. Imagine the silence of the meadow breaking with a charge, a 200-yard sprint a grizzly can cover in seconds. The sound of 400 pounds of muscle pounding the earth, claws raking the grass. You don't have time to think. The human brain freezes between fight and flight. But neither works against a bear like that. Running only flips the switch in the predator's brain. Standing still might buy a second, but at 30 feet, the distance is nothing. A bear doesn't attack like a dog or even a lion. It comes with crushing force, claws slashing, teeth tearing, not to kill swiftly but to dismantle. Survivors of grizzly maulings describe pain beyond imagination. The weight of a truck pinning them, bones snapping like sticks, the sound of their own flesh tearing. For William, alone in the meadow, the agony must have been instant and unrelenting. A swipe of the paw can open flesh to the bone. A bite to the thigh can sever muscle in one crushing motion. He had no gun, no bear spray, no chance. By the time rangers arrived, Bear 59 was still there. In her teeth was part of his leg. Nearby lay one of his tennis shoes, torn and bloodied. She had begun to consume him, doing what grizzlies naturally do with carrion, To her, it wasn't murder. It was survival. But to the National Park Service, the line had been crossed. The moment a bear consumes human flesh, the verdict is automatic. No appeals, no delays. Over the radio, the order was given. Kill Bear 59. And that day, 2 lives ended. Later, when the scene was reconstructed, rangers studied every detail. The tripod, the camera's focal setting, the mangled ground. On paper, it looked like a case of human error. A man too close, too eager, paying the ultimate price. But not everyone bought that story. Friends and locals argued William wasn't reckless. He was experienced, cautious. Some said the Park Service wanted to frame him as the problem, to protect their own management decisions. Because Bear 59 wasn't a random grizzly. She was already a problem bear, one who had been moved and monitored again and again. Some whispered that she should have been permanently removed long before Tesinsky ever set foot in that meadow. In that light, his death wasn't just bad luck. It was a failure of the system. The controversy didn't stop there. Should bears really be executed for eating what's in front of them? Biologists admit that grizzlies don't develop a taste for human blood. They don't stalk people like vampires. But every time a bear consumes part of a victim, the hammer comes down. No one is willing to risk the chance of a repeat. To the public, Bear Eats Man is a nightmare headline. So the policy is simple: zero tolerance. But think about the irony that these same animals are scavengers by nature. They eat carrion, elk carcasses, even roadkill without a second thought. To them, flesh is flesh. It's humans who divide the rules into natural and unnatural. And so, the narrative split in two. On one side, the official record. A photographer pushed too close, ignored the risks, and paid the price. On the other hand, a quieter story. A troubled bear, a broken management system, and a man who might have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Both stories ended the same way. William gone, Bear 59 shot dead, and the Hayden Valley a little emptier. But the haunting part isn't just how it ended. It's imagining those last seconds. The camera was poised, the shutter never pressed. A life spent loving the outdoors, closing in a moment of chaos and terror. The sound of claws, the force of the strike, the pain flooding in. Did he have time to regret? Did he think of home, of family, or only of the shadow blotting out the sky above him? Those answers lie forever in the grass of that meadow. And then there's Bear 59. Executed not for being monstrous, but for being exactly what she was: wild. She didn't know Tesinsky's name. She didn't understand boundaries, tripods, or rules written on laminated signs. She understood hunger. She understood survival. And for that, she was killed. But William Tesinsky wasn't the only one to pay that price. 2 years earlier, in 1984, a Swiss woman camping in the Yellowstone backcountry was dragged from her tent in the middle of the night and killed by a grizzly. Rangers said she never even had time to scream. Fast forward decades later, and the valley where William fell claimed more victims. In 2011, a hiker walking alone through Hayden Valley was mauled and killed in broad daylight. His body later found just off the trail. That same summer, another man lost his life in nearby Pelican Valley, making it one of the deadliest years in Yellowstone's history. And in 2015, a seasoned outdoorsman was killed and partially consumed, sparking headlines around the world. These cases prove William's death wasn't a bizarre one-off. The park is paradise, yes, but paradise with teeth. Again and again, people step into Yellowstone and forget that sharing space with grizzlies means walking a razor's edge between awe and danger. Nearly 4 decades later, the story still echoes whenever tourists inch closer to a bear for the perfect photo, or when park officials debate what to do with a habituated grizzly. It raises a question that has no easy answer. Who is truly at fault when wild and human collide? The man who steps closer, Or the institution that lets a troubled bear keep roaming? Or maybe fault is the wrong word. Perhaps it's simply the cost of trying to share the same space with creatures we can never truly control. William Tesinsky walked into Yellowstone looking for beauty. And he found it, just not in the way he intended. His last view wasn't through a camera lens, but through the blur of panic and pain. Bear 59 followed her instincts and paid with her life. And the rest of us are left with the uneasy reminder that in Yellowstone, paradise and nightmare share the same ground. One misstep, one moment of bad timing, and the line between them disappears.